Right guys, we're now busy with question 3 from November 2022, accounting paper 2. We're now focusing on the budget question. So once again guys, just make sure you're working with me, have that calculator in front of you so that you can maximize from this revision program. Right, question 3, like I said, deals with budgets. The information relates to JR Sanitizer Pty Limited. Okay, the CEO is given to us. James Peter is the bookkeeper. Okay, we don't need that info, right? But we know we're dealing with a company. Okay, required, we'll go through that in a bit, or we'll get to that in a bit. Right, what I want to do is let's have a look at the information and then we'll get to each question in much more detail. Okay, now you're going to find when it comes to budgets, grade 12s, you know this already, there's always quite a bit of information. So just make sure you go through the information, you understand each information is dealing with which aspect of the budget. Sometimes you might tend to read a bit too much. Remember, as long as you are aware of what each information contains, you can get to it in much detail as you're doing the question. Okay, right, so that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to quickly scroll through the information and highlight what each information is basically telling me or giving me information on. So information A deals with sales, cost of sales, debtors collection, and I'm not going to read through these figures, but that's what information A deals with. Right, then information B deals with the purchase of stock and payments to creditors. And once again, we'll obviously get to all of this as we're answering the question, but I'm just getting familiar with my info. Information C deals with rent income. Okay. Then I've got info D deals with salaries. The next bit of information E, purchase of company vehicle for the CEO and insurance. Right, and then finally information F deals with delivery expenses. Okay. There's a bit more information on the next page. So we've got an extract from the cash budget, right? And as you can see, there's some figures that are missing. So I just want to highlight those figures for you. Okay. Right, and then finally, I've got budgeted and actual figures for the month of October. Okay, so I'll obviously get to all of this information when we are asked to interpret the cash budget. Right, but now that I'm familiar with the info that I've got, let's now look at the questions. Okay, so the first question, quite a straightforward question to begin with, complete the creditors' payment schedule for the month of December 2022. Okay. Right, so from the table I can see they're giving me credit purchases, right, for October, November, not for December. And then as you can see, it has been partially filled in, but I've got to fill in the rest. Okay, right, so let's now go to our information, and this is where it's important for you to know which info I need to look at. So obviously, for payments to creditors, I'm referring to information B. So let's now read through the information. A base stock is maintained. Stock sold is replaced in the same month. Okay, so a fixed amount of stock is purchased each month and that is maintained. Cash purchases comprise 15% of total purchase. Okay, so remember, if cash is 15%, then credit is obviously 100 minus 15, 85%. Creditors are paid according to the following trend. 80% are paid in the month of purchase and you receive a 5% discount. 20% are paid in the month after purchase and obviously there's no discount. Right, so using this information, they now want us to calculate what is the creditor's payment period for December. Okay, Right, so if we look at October, obviously October, I would have purchased in October, paid in October and November, so there's nothing for December. You'll see in your booklet, this would be obviously shaded out completely. Right, let's now look at November. So in November, my credit purchase, 331,500. In November, I would pay, remember, 15%, right? I think it was 15%. We'll go back there. And in December, I'm going to pay the balance. So let's go to our information. I just want to put this amount on my calculator so long. So I've got 331,500. Okay. Right, and now let's go to our info. Okay, so remember guys, right, so you've got not 15%, so there we go, there's this bit here. So 80% will pay in that month of purchase, 20% will pay in December. Okay, so that amount times 20%, and I will pay 66,300 in December. So let's fill that in. Right, so in December, for November's purchase, I'll pay 66,300. Okay, right, looking at the month of December, so the credit purchase is missing, so I've got to first work out what is the credit purchase. Right, so let's go to our information. And remember, for this, I am obviously looking at my cost of sales, right? So my cost of sales for December, there we go. Cost of sales, 262,000. Why am I looking at cost of sales? Because cost of sales is equal to total purchases. Remember, whatever you buy for the month, you expect to sell that. So that is why cost of sales, what I bought, right, and what I sold, the cost of sale is equal to total purchase. Right, so using my cost of sale for December, right, cash purchase comprises 15% of total purchase. Credit is 85. So cost of sale, let's just bring that total further down, 262,000, that's my total purchase, times 85% will give me what I bought on credit. Okay, right, so on our calculator, 262,000 times 85%, and that gives me 222,700. So let's take that through in our answer booklet. All right, so remember guys, try and show a bit of working out in the space given, but the amount 222,700. Okay, right, obviously if I bought in December, I'm not going to pay anything in November, so that would have been shaded out. But what I would pay in December would be as follows. So back to our info. Right, so there we go. Okay, so 80% will be paid in the month of purchase, and I'll receive a 5% discount. Right, so let's take that through. Okay, so 222,700 times 80% is what I would pay in December. And remember, I'm going to get a 5% discount, so I'm only paying 100 minus 5%. In other words, I'm paying 95%. Okay, right, so let's put that on our calculator. Okay, there's the amount there, times 80% times 95%, and that gives me an amount of 169,252. Okay, so 169,252. Okay, right, as you can see, I've shown a bit of calculation, and I recommend you do the same. Somewhere on your answer booklet, maybe at the bottom of the page, just show your calculation. Okay, don't forget, the question is asking you what's the total payment to creditors for December. So obviously 66,300 plus 169,252, and my total payment 235,552 if I just add up those figures. Okay, right, first question on cash budget completed. Let's now move on to the next question. So the second question, calculate the missing figures 1 to 3 in the cash budget. Right, so the first missing figure, collection from debtors for the month of December 2022. Right, so let's go to our cash budget. As you can see, this is what we're calculating. How much am I going to receive from my debtors for the month of December? So once again, I'm going to my information, and this time I'm looking at information A. Okay, so for the month of December, right, remember I'm looking at obviously my total sales, right, for the month of December. So my total sales is an amount of 432,300. Okay, however, let's look at how your debtors settle before we use December, because we may have to use another month. So your cash sales comprises of 30% of total sales, which means credit is obviously 70%. Debtors settle their accounts in the month following the month of sale. Now, what does this mean? It means if I buy in November as a debtor, I settle my account in the next month following the month of sale, which means I will pay in December. Now, remember, the question is asking us how much are we expected to receive from debtors for December. So we cannot use December's sale. Okay, so this amount here is really not going to help me. Right, I've got to look at the month of November. So in November, my expected sales, right, is an amount of 643,500, and I need the credit sales. So if cash sales is 30%, credit is 70%, and the amount that I would have sold on credit, so total sales 643,500 times 70%, and my credit sales is an amount of 450,450 rand. Okay, so remember, this is your credit sales in November, and this is what your debtors will pay in December. They're going to pay 1 month later. Okay, so let's fill that in our answer booklet, right, and the amount is 450, 450. Again, guys, show your calculation here. Right, next amount that they want me to calculate is my rent income for December 2022. Okay, so information 2, or missing amount 2, rent income. So I notice in November the rent is 15,000, but in December obviously it's missing. So let's now go find that missing rent. Let's go to the information first. Okay, there we go, information C. Storage space is rented at a fixed rate per square meter. An existing tenant occupies 60 square meters. His lease expires on the 30th of June 2023. So in other words, he's the one that's paying the 15,000 at the moment, I think, but we'll find that out soon. A new tenant has signed a lease agreement for the period 1st December 2022 to the 30th of November 2023. She will occupy a 75 square meter storage area. Okay, so I was correct. Right, so we've obviously got in December, we've got our old tenant and we've got a new tenant. Now the old tenant, from what I can see, the old tenant, right, he or she is paying 15,000. Okay, so let's put that in. So we've got our old tenant. Let's go back to the info. There we go. So our old tenant is paying 15,000, and that 15,000 is obviously for 60 square meters. Okay. Our new tenant will have a slightly bigger premises, 75 square meters. So 75 square meters. Right, so let's work out the rent that the new tenant will be paying. So 15 square meters, or 15,000, is for 60 square meters. So if I divide that by 60, the rent per square meter is 250 Rand. The new tenant will occupy 75 square meters, so 250 times 75, and her rent per month will be 18,750. So 18,750. Remember, she's going to end up paying slightly more. So the total rent I'm expected to receive in December should be 18,750 from my new tenant plus the 15,000 from my old tenant. So in total, the income I expect to receive 33,750. So 33,750. Okay, so that needed a bit of reading, but not too difficult to calculate. Right, let's take that through to our answer booklet. 33,750. Okay, 33,750, and once again, guys, you use the space to show your calculation. Right, moving on. So the next calculation is our salaries for November 2022. So let's look at what they've given first, right? So we can see the salaries, right? December is given to us, but obviously November is missing. So once again, let's now look at the information that's going to help us calculate this amount. Okay, so remember, we're calculating the salaries for November. That's what's missing. A new employee will be appointed from the 1st of December 2022. He will earn 14,840. Okay, so in December, we've got a new employee, right? So there's my new employee, and he is earning 14,840. All other employees will receive an increase of 4.5% per annum effective from the 1st of December 2022. Right, so other employees. Okay, so they received an increase, so they 100, what they were getting, plus a 4.5% increase. Okay, so let's firstly look at, in December, in total, how much are we paying all our employees, and then we will work out how much the old employees actually earned in December. Let's do that first. Right, so let's go back to our table. Right, our salaries, there we go. So the total earned in December, 55,595. Just want to take that amount through. Okay, so we've got an amount of 55,595. Right, this is made up of the new employee as well as all my other employees. Okay, so let's look at the difference. So 55,595 minus 14,840. So the other employees, 40,755. So 40,755. Now remember, guys, right? I know it seems like I'm deviating, but this is important in order for me to calculate what is November's salary. So remember, in November, we only have our old employees. The new guy is only joining in December. So we need to calculate how much would the old employees earn before they increase. Okay, so we know after they increase, this is what they're earning, right? 40,755. I want to calculate what was their 100%, in other words, before they increase. So I want the 100 divided by what I've been given is obviously 104,5, right, with the increase. Okay, right, so let's get our calculators out. So the amount in there times 100 divided by 104.5, and they were earning previously 39,000. Okay, so they were earning 39,000 before the increase. Obviously, you can always check whether you are correct, right? So if I take 39,000 times 104.5 divided by 100, am I still getting that amount? Yes, I am. Okay, so the old employees, the November salary, 39,000. Okay, so this amount here, 39,000. Okay, as you can see with cash budgets, quite a bit of calculation, but remember guys, it's not difficult calculation. Just read through the information, take a few minutes to think about it, and you'll find it's quite logical. Okay, so the next question, calculate the deposit that will be paid for the purchase of the company vehicle during December 2022. So the deposit that will be paid in December. Okay, so let's go to our information so we know exactly what we have, and then we can do our calculation. Right, there we go, information E. A new company vehicle will be purchased on the 1st of December 2022. A deposit of 25% of the cost of the vehicle, excluding interest, will be paid on this day. The remaining balance will be paid in equal monthly installments of 20,800 over 40 or 24 months, including interest with effect from the 31st of December 2022. Interest calculated for the full 2-year period is 45,600. Okay, right, so the question, again, let's be very clear on what the question is. It's asking us calculate what is the deposit. Okay, right, now in order for us to do this, right, remember the deposit is obviously 25%, right, which means the installments, okay guys, installments is the balance, which is 75%. Okay, you with me so far? Right, so let's look at what the monthly installments were. So obviously each month the installment is 20,800, but this includes the interest, right? So 20,800 times 24, so 24 months will give me my total installment with the interest. So let's work that out first. Okay, so 20,800 times 24, okay, and that gives us 499,200. Okay, 499,200. But remember, this is broken down into the actual installment towards the capital portion as well as the interest. Right, now the interest amount is, interest calculated for the full 2-year period is 45,600. So that's the interest I've got to pay, right? 45,600. I think I said 200, it's 45,600. Right, which means the installment, right, the capital portion without the interest, so 499,200 minus the 45,600, and that gives me 453,600. So 453,600. Okay, now you're thinking, where is Mahesh going with this? We're almost there. Okay, but guys, let's just take a few seconds, right? I calculated the installment with the interest, right? And then I've broken it down now, the installment and the interest. I've broken the two. Okay. Once I've got my installment amount, now I'm taking this figure to work out the deposit. Okay, so remember, installment makes up 75%, right? The deposit that I want to work out is the 25%. So the installment amount times, I want the deposit, 25, divided by, I have 75. Right, and let's get that amount. Okay, so times, I want 25 divided by 75, and the installment that we've paid, or rather the deposit that we've paid, 151,200. Okay, so the answer, 151,200. I know quite a few steps there, but guys, I'm sure you would have followed. I took my time with this calculation because it was a bit of a challenging one. Okay, so the amount, 151,200. Okay, 151,200, and obviously lots of space for you to show your calculation. Okay, right, moving on to the next question. So the next question is asking me to do the following. The owner is concerned about the cash position for December. She proposes moving the purchase of the vehicle to Jan 2023. Right, so why is the owner concerned? Because from the cash budget, which we're going to see in a second, we can see that there is an overdraft. She's expecting a negative balance in her bank, an overdraft of 120,000, or a deficit on her budget of 120,000. So let's just quickly go to the cash budget. Let's confirm that. Right, so remember, we're looking at December. Okay, and in the month of December, there we go. So there's a deficit of 120,000, leading to an overdraft of 12,000. And she's obviously concerned. Right, so what is she proposing? She is proposing, right, moving the purchase of the vehicle to Jan 2023, right? And let's see how this is going to improve the situation. So in other words, she's not going to buy the vehicle in December. Remember, a budget is a plan, right? It doesn't mean you've got to stick to that plan. So she's deciding, okay, hang on, I'm going to have an overdraft, I'm going to have a deficit, I'd rather postpone the purchase of this vehicle. So by postponing, what is she now going to save on in that month? Right, guys, so clearly the deposit on the vehicle that we just calculated will be a savings, right? So remember, she'll no longer have to pay that deposit of 151,200, right? So remember, we can add this back, okay? What else is she going to save on? Obviously, she's going to save on the monthly installment, right? And the interest. So the monthly installment as well as the interest. Now remember, we came across this a few seconds ago with that long calculation, right? But the monthly installment, if we go back to the information, so the monthly installment that she's going to save on is the 20,800. So remember, guys, this includes the interest. Okay, so you don't have to show this separately. So let's fill that in. 20,800. She's also going to save on this. Right, what else is she going to save on in terms of this vehicle? So let's go back to our information because we didn't read through everything. Right, so let's scroll back down. There we go. Right, so there we go, this bit here. Right, the existing insurance premium will increase by the amount applicable to the new company vehicle. It will also be payable at the end of each month from the 31st of December 2022. So what else is she going to save on? She's going to save on insurance, because remember, if she doesn't own that vehicle, she doesn't have to pay this expense every month. So let's work out what the insurance would have been. So let's go to our budget, right? So remember, she's planning. Obviously, she would have bought it in December. This was her old insurance, and this is the insurance with the new vehicle. Okay, so the difference between the two would be the insurance on the vehicle. So let's work that out. So 9,700 minus 6,500, and that gives us 3,200, right? So remember, she won't be paying this insurance. So 3,200 is another savings. Okay, right, let's just write that down, insurance. Okay, what else is she going to save on? So let's go to the cash budget. Okay, right, so obviously we took into account the deposit, the monthly installments, so we took that into account. We also took into account the insurance, right, repairs and maintenance, nothing about the vehicle, advertising, delivery expense, obviously nothing to do with this particular vehicle. Right, insurance we covered, fuel for the company vehicle, there we go. Right, so remember, there we go, she's going to save on fuel, because if she doesn't own the vehicle, obviously she's not paying this fuel bill each month. So plus 7,500, and this would be the fuel that she would be saving on. Okay, so in total, what's going to happen to her surplus? Remember, sorry, not surplus, to her deficit, right? So remember, we obviously have a negative 120,000. If we're going to add these four amounts, you're going to see that she's going to end up with a surplus, a positive 62,700. Okay, right, question done and dusted. Let's move on to the next question. So once again, the owner is concerned about her decision in October 2022 to adjust the markup percentage and the amount actually spent on advertising. Provide 2 points to indicate whether these were wise decisions or not, quote figures and or calculations. Okay, so going back to our information, we're obviously looking at markup, right, and we're looking at advertising. So if we go further down, there we go. Right, so here's our markup. So our markup, right, for the month of October, 45% actual, budgeted was 65%, right? So let's start with markup. Is there a need to be concerned? So as you can see, despite having a lower markup, right, her sales were much higher than what she budgeted for. Remember, that's your budgeted sales, and this obviously is your actual sales. So even though her sales were obviously, the markup was under budget, right? If we look at the sales, she's obviously got significantly higher sales. Now remember guys, you can work out again the percentage increase in sales. We'll see that in the memo in a second, right? Or you can talk about the difference in sales if you're showing the rand value. Right, in terms of advertising, okay, she budgeted 40,000. She ended up only spending 28,000. So once again, she was obviously under the budget, right? She didn't spend as much as she was hoping to. But as we can see, why do we advertise? We advertise to increase sales. So that had very little impact on her sales, right? She still was able to sell many products. In fact, she sold more products than what she budgeted for. So if you look at the information, that's kind of blocked because of the handwriting. There we go. Let's just fix that. Right, so that was her actual sales versus her budgeted sales. Right, so let's go to the memo, because I've got the memo for this part of the question. There we go. Right, so she was concerned sales of 4,390 Rand, or 90 units rather, more than budgeted. Right, there we go. Or you can talk about sales exceeds the budget by 247,446 Rand. Right, or as I said, you can work out that percentage, and the percentage was 42.4% higher than what was budgeted for. Okay, so showing that she shouldn't be concerned. Right, then you can talk about the gross profit. So you're going to see the gross profit was much higher as well. You could mention that. Right, she underspent on advertising by 12,000, right, or by 30%, which was not significant as it did not affect her sales negatively. Okay, so you can include all of this in your answer. Right, but I'd prefer to just discuss it with you. As you can see, you've got the memo to look through, but you need to understand where are these figures coming from. Okay, right, let's move on now to the next question. Okay, so the next question deals with repairs and maintenance for October. So once again, she's worried, she's concerned about the actual amount spent on repairs and maintenance during October. Quote a figure or a calculation. Okay, so let's go back to our information and let's look at repairs and maintenance. Is there a concern? Okay, remember we're looking at now the month of October. Right, so repairs and maintenance, right, as you can see, budgeted 30,000 and actual that was spent is 8,000. So once again, she underspent. She didn't use the 30,000 that she budgeted for. Now, can this be a concern? Yes, it can. Right? Why? Because in any business, repairs and maintenance is something vital. Now remember, if you are not maintaining your operations, or maintaining your equipment rather, not operations, if you don't maintain, you don't service your equipment, you will not be able to provide a service to your customers, right? And that could hinder performance by a business. So this, yes, this is a concern. Why is she only spending 8,000 and not the full 30,000? Because like I said, it could impact on her business and it could impact negatively on her business. Right, so let's go to the actual memo. Right, and let's just read further. Okay, so Juanita, right, so again, underspent on maintenance by 22,000, spent only 8,000 off the 30,000. So only 26.6% of the budget was used, right? 73% was not used. Now, why is this a concern? This could cause, this could affect the long run productivity of the assets, right? By neglecting maintenance, it may cause disruption to operations, right? Cash savings, yes, she's saving money in the short run, but it may cause bigger problems in the future, right? So your fixed assets could break down, deteriorate, and leading to an even bigger expense in the future. So it's like, for example, I've got my, let's say I've got my vehicles, right? And if I don't service my vehicles regularly, and let's assume I should be servicing them at least after every 3 months or 4 months, and I neglect this because I'm trying to save a few rands here and there. What would happen in a year's time? My vehicle could break down completely, and as a result, I may have to buy a new vehicle. So similarly, if she's got equipment in her business, that equipment, by not maintaining it in the short run, in the long run, it could cost her where she's got to replace that entire machinery or equipment. Okay. Right, let's move on to the next question. Okay, so this is, I think, the last question that wants us to now look at, or the second last question. James feels that there's been a lack of control. So remember, James is one of her employees. Feels that there's been a lack of control over the amount spent on delivery expenses and packing material. Explain whether James' opinion is correct or not. Provide calculations. Okay, so let's look at the delivery expense as well as packing material. Right, back to the November's budget, because that's what the question referred us to. Okay, so looking at, it's one more page, there we go. Right, there we go. So we're looking at delivery expense and we're looking at packing material. So I'm going to start off by looking at packing material because I think that's way easier. Right, so if we look at packing material, okay, so clearly we can see more was spent, right? So we budgeted 23,364, but your actual payment or expense was 37,850. Let me just make sure I'm using the correct terminology. Remember, guys, when we're talking about cash budgets, we obviously referring to payments and receipts. When we're talking about the projected income statement, we're referring to expenses and income. So in this case, yes, it's a payment, not an expense. Right, now when it comes to packing material, please remember, guys, that the more you sell, the higher your packing material expense will be. So if we look at sales and the number of units sold, we can clearly see that you ended up selling much more, right? So if we look at sales, okay, and we compare what was budgeted, so we ended up selling more. So there were more sales. So as a result, your packing material payment would be higher as well. Now, what's important is for you to work out what the percentage is, okay? So if we take the difference between the 37,350 minus the 23,364, divide that by the 23,364, we'll get the percentage, right? We can do the same for sales and we can compare. But generally, if your sales increases, so should your packing material. Right, similarly, if we look at delivery expenses, there's been an increase also in delivery expenses. But remember again, if the business is providing a delivery service, the more sales you have, the more this particular payment towards this expense will be. Okay, so let's look at our memo just to make sure that we haven't left anything out. Okay, it should be on the next page. Right, there we go. Okay, so the delivery costs were well maintained. Service providers were able to operate more efficiently in spite of increased sales. The delivery expense is 22.4% more than budgeted, but the units sold is more than budgeted by 62%. Okay, so very important. What I didn't explain a few minutes ago or seconds ago is, again, when you're looking at sales, look at the percentage increase in sales and compare this to the percentage increase in your delivery cost or your delivery expense. That's exactly what they're doing here. Right, then another way of doing this, you could look at the cost per unit, right? So take your delivery cost, divide it by the number of units sold, and you can make that comparison. So the delivery cost per unit, R3.74, compared to R4.95 as was budgeted for. Okay, so you could do it in that fashion as well. Right, then in terms of the next expense, which was packing material, we're doing the exact same thing, comparing packing material to sales. Now, in this particular case, right, here, there is a bit of concern, Okay, so I probably didn't mention that when I was looking at the information, but had we did the percentage increases, we would have seen this. So your packing material is 62% more than budgeted, and units sold is also 62% more than budgeted. Sales is 42.4% more than budgeted, right? The unit cost of packing material was maintained at R3.30, budgeted for 4% of sales, actual was 4.6% of sales, right? So here, in terms of managing the packing materials, again guys, just remember you once again comparing this to sales. Okay, you guys got that. Right, I want to touch quickly on the last question. Okay, and I think I'm going to use the memo for this because this one's quite an easy question. So the owner wants to use social media to create an online shopping platform to increase her sales from Jan. Name 3 additional payments that must be included in Jan's cash budget. Right, so obviously guys, with social media, the first thing that comes into mind, you've got to have internet, you've got to have fiber. What are those costs going to be like, right? You've got to have equipment as well. So those are some of the items you're now including in your cash budget. So there's a whole host of items. Just remember, you've got to give 3 valid different examples. Okay, so she could have establishment of a call center, right, especially if it's online shopping, so where customers can call or they can order online and someone's monitoring this, right? Then with online comes additional courier services, because remember, you've got to now pay for transporting these items to your customers, right? A delivery vehicle, are you going to outsource it? Are you going to get your own? Right, so that could be the first example. Remember, 3 different examples. Then in terms of the equipment that you need, obviously computer hardware and so on, right? Generator, inverter because of load shedding, solar panels, right? Increased salaries for the drivers, the assistants, the IT tech staff and so on. Packaging costs, you may have to incur more packaging costs because you are now providing this online service. Right, then insurance, another item that you could mention, and then in terms of your staff, training them, the cost of installing fiber, your internet cost and so on, designing that online advert, or if it was a web page, additional advertising, IT maintenance. Okay, so any 3 examples, as long as your examples are different as well as relevant. Okay, right, and I think we are now done with question 3 on budgets.